All right. Welcome, everyone. I am so excited to be hosting this workshop today. We are going to be talking about dehydration, how it affects your bodies, and how we can become revitalized at the end. So let's get into it. A little bit about myself. I am Nicole, and I am a certified integrative nutrition health coach. And I am Flo's health coach, and I am passionate about simplifying health and wellness and truly believing in advocacy to really equip you with practical tools for your wellness. Throughout my own healing journey, I have experienced a huge transformation throughout proper hydration. And so I'm very excited to share this knowledge as well as some tips with you guys today. And today, before we begin, I know we will be discussing water and the access that we have to water. And I truly want to express what a great privilege it is that we, especially in America, have access to drinkable tap water. I know that this is not the case for many people, and we always just want to acknowledge that. And so, with that being said, this webinar, as always, is made to bring awareness, to educate, and to hopefully help optimize your hydration, no matter what kind of access you have to water. So with that being said, let's begin with our overview. Today, we will talk about what is homeostasis, why that's important to know, how dehydration affects our bodies, and how this can actually create certain symptoms of stress, why our water is not hydrating us today, and some commonly found contaminants that are in our tap water. We're going to go over an amazing resource that is going to be really helpful for you guys when it comes to finding what is going to be the best kind of water to drink, as well as how to return our bodies to homeostasis through something called mineralization. And then we will end this webinar with some fun recipes, going over some foods and drinks that are going to optimize hydration. So let's get started. Maybe you've heard the term homeostasis, and maybe you haven't, and that's okay. But this is a term when originated from its Greek origin, translates from homeo, which means similar to, and stasis means stand still. And this is a phrase or a word that is very commonly used within the scientific community to explain basically a balance, whether it's in our bodies or within nature. This is a very commonly used word. And the NIH actually defines this as on a cellular level, homeostasis is observable in biochemical reactions from regulation of pH, the temperature of our bodies, the oxygen level within our blood, ion concentrations, as well as blood glucose concentrations that are all necessary for enzymes within our body to function optimally in the environment of the cell. So again, what this really means is balance. And our bodies are always trying to maintain homeostasis. And unfortunately, in today's world, there are many things that can cause our bodies to fall out of homeostasis and fall into imbalance. Chronic dehydration is one of them. So I want to take a moment to test your knowledge. If you could take a guess, what do you think is the speculated average percentage of Americans today that are chronically dehydrated? And I will give you guys a moment if you want to throw your guesses in the chat. Is it 36, 89, 75, or 28%? Give you a few more seconds to think about it. All right, if you guessed C, 75%, then you are correct, which unfortunately is a bit of an alarming statistic considering we all probably drink some amount of water throughout the day. So let's talk about how dehydration affects our bodies. Dehydration typically is caused through sweat. It actually happens when we breathe as moisture leaves our body within our breath, through urination, etc. So what happens when this fluid leaves our bodies is the particles or the solutes in our blood and in our cells become increasingly concentrated. I like to visualize this as imagine you have a glass jar filled with sand. Now, if you pour a bunch of water in the sand, there will be a lot more room for the sand particles to kind of float around and, they're not really tight together. But as time goes on and as that water evaporates, the sand is going to become more and more compact and it won't have as much room to float around. So this is what happens in our body, which is not ideal. And this really signals to our brain, especially even before we feel thirsty, that we are dehydrated, which begins a cascade of chemical reactions that take place, which in turn activates your sympathetic nervous system, which is going to begin to tell our organs to retain as much fluid as possible in order to survive. Now, as we know, oftentimes when our bodies are in fight or flight, we're not in innate danger. It's not like we're running for our lives from something, which hopefully we're not. But again, this is a survival mechanism that is not always ideal. So breaking this down, fluid is somehow released from your body. Then your brain releases a hormone called ADH, which is a signal to say, hey, let's start holding on to fluids so that way we maybe aren't urinating as much, our body doesn't sweat as much, it's just holding on to that fluid. So your organs, mostly your kidneys, are going to hold on to those remaining fluids rather than excreting them, which in turn activates your nervous and cardiovascular system. So this causes stress on our bodies. And I want to very quickly highlight this quote from Springer Link that says, all in all, in terms of physiology, stress is equal to dehydration for the average human, whether this is due to behavioral changes or physiologic mechanisms. So this can also be translated or observed as chronic dehydration can equally lead to chronic stress on our bodies. So again, this is why this activates our sympathetic nervous system. And now often we think maybe some symptoms we experience are normal. However, just because something is common does not inherently mean that it is normal. So maybe you have experienced some of these symptoms, and maybe you haven't even attributed this to whether you're hydrated or not, such as fatigue, muscle weakness or cramping, headaches, digestion issues, or difficulty regulating your body temperature. So within this kind of mindset of we now know what dehydration is, but again, probably most of us are drinking some sort of water or eating hydrating foods. So the question really is why are we not being properly hydrated? If 75% of Americans today are dehydrated, what is going on? So what makes our water today not as bioavailable, not as easily absorbed by our bodies as maybe it was in the past for our ancestors? Unfortunately, industrialization has been not as helpful for the quality of our drinking water in several ways. So these are 6 certain points that I want to highlight today. Certainly not all of the points that maybe could be affecting our water, but just a few, again, that I want to highlight. So the first being factory farming. So what can happen is animal waste might be stored in lagoons, in these factory farms, or they actually might be sprayed onto fields as fertilizer. And this can leak into groundwater, or if it's through spray, the aerosol can be carried into nearby streams, etc. Next is industrial crop production, especially with the utilization of synthetic fertilizers and pesticides that, again, are either sprayed into the air or can be leaked into groundwater. With all of that being said, that it increases the risk of heavy metal contamination, from these fertilizers, animal waste, as well as old or degraded piping that maybe has been in the ground for several years, that's starting to get old and maybe rust. Next is nitrates, which can also be a result of pesticides or other agricultural related contamination. There have also been findings of endocrine disruptors, like endocrine disrupting pharmaceuticals, like birth control, have actually been found in our tap water. Lastly is lack of an electrical charge. This is probably not something that you think of when you think of water, but when water naturally runs through streams on the earth, it's connected to the electrical current of the earth. Maybe you've heard of grounding, which is when you stick your feet on maybe dirt or sand, and you can notice that there is a benefit of the electrical charge from the earth basically going into your body. So this is no longer happening in our water because now our water is being stored outside of the ground, as well as the way that it is being cleaned and treated. It is reducing the essential minerals that our water would naturally have that would help in turn our body. And so basically what is happening is because of these things, our water actually has to be chemically treated, usually with chlorine, in order to be drinkable, which makes sense. We obviously don't want to be consuming these byproducts. But then again, that means that just like maybe we have processed foods, we also have processed water. So that's not going to be ideal. So let's understand what are potential water contaminants. And we kind of talked a little bit about that in the last slide, but some commonly found contaminants, again, are things like chlorine. You might find arsenic from the ground, again, nitrates, or things from the piping like copper, lead, other heavy metals. Fluoride is also very commonly used in treating water. Additionally, volatile organic compounds from things like fertilizers and then pesticides. So again, this is not to scare you. This is not to make you think that your water is so bad, but just something to be aware that could possibly be in your tap water. So an amazing resource, like I mentioned, I would bring up is called the EWG. And they are an activist group that specializes in research and advocacy in areas of agriculture, toxic chemicals, water pollutants, etc. So if you're curious about knowing what is specifically in your tap water, I will show you guys how to do that. But this is an amazing resource that will really dive deeper into what is in your specific drinking water, as it has databases all around the United States, which is amazing. So I will show you guys basically what that means. So what you can do is you can go to ewg.org and you can do a / I believe it's just water database. And you put in your zip code, and it actually shows you what contaminants are found within your region. It shows you which ones exceed their health guidelines. And it basically just goes through a whole list of what's the legal limit, what they found in your water. So it is a really good way to just learn. It as you can see, gives you different ways to maybe filter if filtering your water is an option. I know it's not for everyone, which if it's not, and this is something that you are particularly passionate about, always there's the option to take action by contacting your local officials within your local government and really fighting and advocating for clean water for everyone. So the question is how do we return our bodies back to this homeostasis if we are in a state of chronic dehydration? Now, since our bodies are always trying to maintain this balance, and now we understand that there might be some complications that are hindering that balance, we must ask this question. And one of the answers that I personally think has especially been helpful for me is through mineralization. So what are minerals? They are essential for pretty much every process within our body, especially for our healthy cellular function. They're used by our bones, by our blood, again, our cells, our brain, our neurotransmitters, or our hormones, and literally everything. So minerals are found in food, in different drinks. And again, it's naturally found in our water. So when you drink mineralized water, it actually helps your body naturally absorb the water molecules. This is compared to demineralized or purified water, or maybe reverse osmosis water, which, if there are no minerals in the water, it's actually less absorbable by our bodies, which again is leading to this chronic dehydration. So while there are several types of minerals, these are the 7 most essential minerals that are needed by our bodies for proper bodily function. Again, you can find these in food, in drinks. You can even supplement with them. There are many ways to get access to these, which are amazing. And we'll even get into some fun recipes that contain a lot of these towards the end. So as you can see, we have zinc, magnesium, calcium, potassium, copper, sodium, and iron. So being able to prioritize foods that are rich in moisture is also just important as drinking mineralized water. I know maybe not everyone wants to just drink plain water. So the idea of being able to get your minerals and hydration from food sources is also going to be really helpful and really beneficial for hydration and mineralization. So things like dairy, coconut water, celery, tomatoes, beans, bananas, salmon, leafy greens, avocados, different meats and fish, as well as mangoes, oranges, watermelon, and cottage cheese can all be really great sources of hydration, as well as they are all rich in minerals like calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, and so on. Another thing that I like to incorporate, again, if plain water is not always your thing, incorporating hydrating teas can be a really yummy and delicious way to increase the amount of nutrients and minerals that you are getting throughout the day. I know that some teas might not always be suitable for certain medical conditions, or they might actually interact with certain medications. So if you are interested in trying a new tea, just reach out to a medical professional just to make sure, if you are on anything, any medications or supplements, even just making sure that you are good to go with these. But I particularly love green tea, oat straw, nettles, red clover, dandelion root, and horsetail teas. These are all rich in potassium, calcium, phosphorus, iron, sodium, manganese, zinc, and so much more. So definitely would recommend looking into teas. So as promised, I wanted to throw in some fun hydrating recipes for you guys. These are really yummy and hopefully super easy and accessible for anyone to make, and hopefully help up-level your hydration game. So feel free to take a screenshot of this. If you want to also look up any specific recipes on your own time, definitely would recommend doing that. And maybe you've heard of the adrenal cocktail. This is something that is super mineral rich and super hydrating, and it is simply orange juice, coconut water, and sea salt. An optional way to make it kind of taste like a creamsicle is adding coconut cream as well. And that's a really yummy summer drink, especially. Something else that's super easy is just heating up some warm water and adding some lemon or maybe some lime, or even adding your favorite fruit, maybe strawberries or, whatever fruit sounds good with warm water first thing in the morning is going to be really great, especially because we do lose a lot of our fluids and the water in our bodies during sleep. So next is any kind of broth, whether it's a meat or bone broth, or if you prefer a veggie broth, sipping that on its own or using that in a soup or a stew is going to be really hydrating because you are drinking a really concentrated cup of minerals that are from, whatever you brew the broth in. So that's going to be really great as well. Again, incorporating hot or even iced teas are going to be great. There are actually mineral drops or electrolyte drops that you can add to purified water. If that's what you have access to, you can always go online or even your local health food store and find a good quality drop that you can add to your water. If you like fruit, having a fruit salad or having fruit with yogurt can also be just a really simple yet amazing way to get that hydration and minerals within your diet. So again, these are just some tips to get started. As I mentioned in the recipes, there are so many different things that you can do to look up fun, different ideas to become hydrated. And again, I just want to highlight too, if you want to look into getting a good quality water filter, definitely utilize the EWG and talking to your local officials about water quality and making sure that no matter where you are, you have access to clean and good quality water. So with all of that being said, I want to thank you all for joining today. I hope you learned something new about minerals and about hydration. And hopefully after you hop off today, you'll go and enjoy a nice glass of water, broth, or whatever recipe sounds good to you. And I will go ahead and stop this recording, but we will open the floor to any questions after the end. So again, thank you guys for watching and have a great day.